all, it's Cecilia, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be putting together the rest of March. I'm mainly going to be using Studio Calico, Ali Edwards, and Paper Person Shop. For a couple of weeks in March, we went back to Texas to visit our friends and family, so there are a couple of pages that I'm going to be keeping private from that. This top page I created using Canva, and these timelines in the middle are modified from an Ali Edwards template for a week in the life. Okay, so let's get started. For the trip title tag, I created a process short / reel, which you can find linked down below. The 4x6 wavy card is from Studio Calico's Sunnyside Documenter Kit from March. I trimmed it in half, and then I added a layer of Duralar, which is polyester film, to tone down the colors a little bit. I'm securing everything together using a tiny attacher. I'm going to be using one of these stamps from the Departure stamp set by Paper Person Shop, and I'm going to use it on white cardstock and then fuzzy cut the shape out just to add it to the card with the boarding pass. Since these are brand new stamps, I am prepping this one using a Tombow Mono Sand Eraser. The ink pad that I am using is by Studio Calico, and it is Clean Slate. And I am using the mini Misty stamp platform to make sure I get a good impression. The Misty also helps me with the position of the second stamp, and since this one is so tiny, it's a little bit hard to get it just right. The larger hexagon stamp says arrived with a blank spot for you to be able to add another stamp on there, and I stamped United States. Next, I'm just going to fuzzy cut it, and in the meantime, I'm going to talk about the en route photo, which I'm going to be working on next. The en route is actually a digital stamp from Everyday Explorers, and the craft paper texture is from within Canva. So I just put it together in Canva. I'm using the Tombow Mono Permanent Adhesive to adhere the fuzzy cut stamp onto the boarding pass. We had already stapled this once, so right now I'm just adding a couple more staples for decoration purposes. I am taping these two cards together so that they don't move around inside the pocket. There was a little extra piece of Duralar that I just had to trim so that they would sit nicely next to each other. Since I printed the photo as a 3x4, we need to find a background for it, and sometimes I don't remember if I had already picked something out, so I tidy things up just a little bit. I decided to go with the same wave card. I tried having it to the right of the photo and then to the left and upside down, but I decided to leave it to look like a continuation of the card to the left. Because the pocket fits about 4 inches by 4 inches, I only need to show 1 inch of the card. And so what I do is trim it in half so that I can add some adhesive to it. And I'm using the Misty platform so that I can get the edges straight. I swear I'm not doing it on purpose, but whenever I tap on something, it means that I feel like I'm missing a little something. So I want to use the Social Paper Planner ephemera that I got. This is all Texas related. I wanted to use a round label, but there weren't any that were big enough to fit the size of Texas. The peach labels are from Studio Calico, and the other circle ones are from Paper Person Shop. These are the Let's Go journal bits by Simple Stories, and I like the hotel key tag, especially because it looked like it was made out of craft paper. While I definitely like the key card being vertical, I just want to make sure that I don't like it some other way better. And now that I am sure, I adhere the Texas down, and then I grab my We Are Memory Keepers multi-punch and punch a tiny little hole. Next, I'm working on the bottom left photo, and this stamp set is from Everyday Explorers. It's called Best in Travel, but unfortunately it's no longer available. This was a sunset on our way up north of Austin, and I can't believe I completely forgot how amazing the sunsets are in Texas. Usually when I use my big Canon Pixma Pro 100 printer, I use the Costco Kirkland photo paper, and the only downside is that it's a little sticky if the stamps are new, so it will take some of the ink away from the paper. I did find a new printable for acetate on the My Sweet Petunia website to prevent this, but I haven't tried it yet. Because the ink on the stamp did not end up covering the white spots on the photo, I decided to do it again. I wanted to use this burnt orange ticket from, I believe it's Social Paper Planner. However, when I positioned the stamp, I forgot to make sure that there was no ink residue left. And so I tried stamping it again, and that also was not a very good impression. It looked like the ticket kind of slid up a little bit. So when I tried to stamp the B and the E again, it just didn't quite look right. I like the little half hole detail on the bottom of the ticket, so I just flipped it over and did it in white. I'm actually not a fan of burnt orange. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that as a former Austenite, but I like it so much better in white. I'm leaving a small gap between the edge of the photo and the ticket. I think I'm okay with having one side being off the edge of the photo, but not like both sides in a corner. What I did like about this stamp was that little gap in the middle, and it fit one of the tiny attacher staples perfectly. Just shaking it a bit so it dries faster, and then I'm just gonna test it on a piece of scrap paper. Not pictured here, but we hit up Target to get ourselves some SIM cards for our phones since we were going to be in the States for just over 2 weeks. And then we were starving. So of course we hit up Torchy's Tacos, which was across the street. And it's all amazing, but I really miss their Mexican martinis. There's just no comparison for me. This card is from the Sunny Side Up kit, also from Studio Calico, and I typed some journaling in Photoshop and printed it directly on the card. The stamp says Craving Satisfied, and the stamp is from a set called Local Eats by In a Creative Bubble that is currently sold out at Studio Calico. And you can hit the notify me button in case it ever comes back in stock. I almost forgot to tape these two together, but it feels like it's still missing a little something. So I added a chipboard circle that says love, and that is very old from Felicity Jane. Moving on to the other page, the March card is from Ali Edwards Stories by the Month, and I typed up the journaling in Photoshop and printed it directly onto the card. I left room for the unmasked die cut that is from Paper Person Shop. The journaling is just talking about our mask usage in the States and how we felt about it. In the 4x6 pocket, I'm gonna have 2 cards, one with the fork and the spoon, and I'm not sure where that one is from. And the rainbow one is from the Sunnyside kit. I love it when restaurants and pubs have their own custom coasters, so I grabbed one from when we went to Jack Allen's on our second evening there. I taped the 2 cards together first because I'm going to be overlapping the coaster. I made a list of all the places we ate at. There were a couple that were new to us, but most of them were old favorites. I printed the list of places directly onto the card, and I really wanted to use the Really Missed This die cut that has an arrow pointing towards the right. I have some space to use up on the pocket on the left that has the March card because it is going to be in a 4x4 pocket. I'm using the rest of the wavy card next to the March card. I feel like the colors of the card are a little too bright, so I'm adhering a piece of Duralar onto the card using the Tombow permanent adhesive, and then I trim the overhang. I then go to adhere the wavy card to the back of the March card, and it dawns on me that perhaps I should be using red line tape to make sure it really sticks. I probably should have used it when adhering the wavy card to the Duralar, but we'll just see what happens and hope for the best. After I adhere it, then I'm going to trim the excess off the top, and it takes about 3 tries, so it gets a little darker for a moment in between there where a cloud is passing by. Since I am adhering the die cut to the outside of the pocket, I also use some red line tape on this. And because the backing is a little bit harder to take off, I try using tweezers, and then I use this tool for weeding vinyl. Okay, so the bottom right pocket is next, and this card says, so happy to leave and so happy to come home. And it's from the 2021 travel collection from Ali Edwards. This trip wasn't easy. I mean, it was great to see loved ones and get to eat all the food and watch the sunsets, but it just didn't feel like home anymore, and it felt really sad. I did some journaling on the blue card, which is from the Sunny Side kit. So I just need to find a card that's going to be the background for this pocket. And these are all the Sunny Side cards. I'm looking for a card that is going to be subtle, but also one that I don't mind cutting up because I'm only going to be seeing 1 inch of the card. So I decided to go with the blush one that has the wavy cancellation lines for postage. Once I'm happy with the placement of the wavy lines, then I'm ready to adhere the card on top, which is an Ali Edwards one. From one of the travel kits, but I'm not sure which one. It talks about how travel isn't always pretty, and I decided that I'm not gonna cut up the blush card because I don't see myself using the other half. Originally, this was going to be a flip up card, but I decided that I wanted to keep the journaling private, so I just clipped all of the cards together and put them in the pocket. My husband used to do veterans jiu-jitsu when we lived in Texas, so he actually got to go to a class when I was feeling under the weather and had to cancel plans with friends, and I'm really glad he got the chance to go. I tried a couple of different 4x6 cards that were from travel kits, and I also liked this blush card, but I liked the background on it a lot more, so I didn't want to use it so that only like a little bit was showing. I pulled out my stash of 4x6 cards, and I was thinking that I wanted a pretty light color, probably blue. And then this is when I realized that I was going to need to trim down the photo because it really was not leaving a lot of space for journaling. I went with this card because I really liked the white box that it had. I was thinking about putting the date there, so it added a little bit more interest rather than just lines. Once I adhere the photo down, then I'm going to add the date. The roller date stamp that I'm using is by One Canoe 2, which has been discontinued. The ink I used is Power Suit by Studio Calico Color Theory. And I tried using my Sharpie S-Gel pen, but it was not really working on the cardstock, so then I switched over to a fine point Sharpie marker. I also add the date to the So Happy to Leave card and call this page done. I had a bit of an idea of where I wanted to place things on this page, but it wasn't 100% for sure, so I rearranged some things and I cut out a little bit of the footage just because it was overblown. Thanks clouds that kept rolling in and out, but soon I'll be sick of it and I will change over to the lighting. Anyhow, what I'm using is the spring stamp set by In a Creative Bubble, and this is available on Studio Calico. These labels are from Paper Person Shop, and I'm going to be using StazOn ink, or at least I'm going to try to use StazOn ink. And the reason for that is that these labels are a little bit more slick, so I want to make sure that the ink stays put. I use a dry marker eraser to apply even pressure when I'm using the stamping platform. There are other tools you can use, but this was like $2 and I didn't have to wait 2 to 3 weeks to receive it. So this picture that I'm using from the Nissan dealership is actually the day that we got back from Texas. And all of a sudden, all these trees were blooming. I wanted to make sure that I documented that. The important part of this photo is the blossom trees, so I don't mind covering up the Nissan logo. Next, I'm going to use a flag from a Social Paper Planner, and the stamp that I'm using says Spring Vibes. I trimmed down the little flag just because it was a little too big for my liking. Once I'm done adhering this little flag, I'm going to work on this journaling card, which I had typed in Photoshop and printed directly onto the card. And it's an old one, so I don't know exactly where it's from. I'm going to add some torn up craft paper to go with the first layout from this video. And this craft cardstock is actually from Michaels. My lovely sister got it for me since Michaels doesn't ship here. So the COVID-19 stamp is from Paper Person Shop, and this was from the Endemic kit. And while the physical kit is not available, Kelly does have these digital stamps available on her website. I stamped COVID-19 on this cardstock twice because I'm going to be tearing off the bottom, and I wanted to make sure that I had a spare in case I didn't like the way the first one looked or if I messed up the stamping. The stamp has a little gap where you can put one of other stamps that she included in the set, and so I stamped update on there. First I tried it with the stamping platform, but it was too small, so then I switched over to a block and stamped it manually. There's the finger tap, so I'm gonna pull up my phone because I want to add the date. I'm not sure if you caught it, but the album said March 2022. My process when I'm ready to start scrapbooking is to select photos and place them in an album with the name of the month. This helps me narrow down the photos further, and also it helps me when I need to reprint a photo or recall a date or a place. So this photo of Maya is obviously gonna need a heart because she looks so cute to me anyway. And so I pick out a bunch of chipboard hearts from my box and I go with an old Felicity Jane. I wasn't sure where the photo of my husband on the Peloton was gonna go. I was thinking one of the top pockets initially, but having a 3x4 photo in a 4x4 spot is obviously not an issue for me. I didn't originally print it as a 4x4 either because it was taken in portrait mode, right? And so it wasn't any wider than this, and I would have had to cut off either my husband's foot or his head, and so I decided against doing that. I chose the card with the imperfect dots from the Sunnyside stash. I like that some of the dots were blush and some were more the maroon color that went with the heart. I'm going to be adding some journaling, and I'm debating between a label and some craft paper. I was also debating which side I wanted the dots on, and ultimately I decided that I wanted them on the left side because I'm going to be putting a filler card in the middle, and I just want there to be some separation between the two different cards. Again, I don't see myself using the other half of this card were I to cut it in half, and so I decided to just use the whole thing. I also decided on the Life Lately label, which is in a blush color. The Sharpie didn't originally work, so I grabbed another one and tested it before proceeding. I stamped the date right above the label using clean slate. I then adhere the heart onto Maya's photo. We're in the home stretch now, and I am looking for some chipboard to add to this star card. I'm not sure where this card is from. I'm assuming it's a Studio Calico, but if you know, totally drop it down below. I go with an orange March Memories tag from Ali Edwards Stories by the Month. I'm not sure which year it's from. It's kind of hard to reference Ali Edwards stuff because she doesn't keep all of the Stories by the Month digitals on her website all the time. And then I chose a board strip that said "You're So Sweet." I also don't know where it's from. Okay, so now that I'm ready, I'm going to adhere these down. The newer chipboard by Ali Edwards doesn't have adhesive on the back, so you can add it yourself. The reason I put down the tape first is because it would be difficult to get them level with the thickness of the chipboard. Naturally, I want to add a chipboard heart to Maya, and first I chose the blush Felicity Jane one, but it didn't stick out because my mouse mat was also blush, and so I went with a maroon one. So with that, we are done for today. Thank you so much for coming by and spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. Again, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Also hit the notification bell because, like I've said before, I'm the worst YouTuber and I'm not consistent at all. Alrighty, take care and hope to see you soon. Bye.